A murder case can sit cold for 40 years. A family just waiting, an injustice just buried. But the truth, it has this funny way of finding the light, even if it's hiding in something as tiny as a single drop of DNA.
Okay, so take a look at this. This timeline, it really shows you the arc of justice. And man, did it stretch. For 4 whole decades. A family just waiting. An investigation completely stalled. And a killer walking free. This is the story of how justice for a 16-year-old girl finally arrived. We're not talking days here. We're talking decades.
So, how did they do it? How did they crack one of New York's most haunting cold cases? Well, the key wasn't some dramatic confession. It was cutting-edge science and, believe it or not, a single piece of trash. A discarded smoothie straw. Seriously.
All right, let's go back. Let's set the scene. It's November 1984. A 16-year-old girl, Theresa Fusco, she just finished her shift at a local roller rink. After being let go from her job, she starts the short, just 4-block walk home. A walk she would never, ever complete.
You can just imagine, right? The whole community was absolutely terrified. And the police? They were under this immense, crushing pressure to make an arrest. And that pressure, that need for a quick answer, well, it would lead to a catastrophic failure of justice, one that would just echo for the next 40 years. So the investigators, they're desperate for a win here. They zero in on 3 local guys who worked for a moving company: John Kogut, John Restivo, and Dennis Halstead. But here's the thing, the huge problem. There was absolutely no physical evidence connecting them to the crime. None. The case they built against these men, it was basically resting on 2 pillars of complete injustice. First, you have a confession from John Kogut, but it was squeezed out of him after a brutal 18-hour interrogation. And second, forensic methods like microscopic hair comparison. This is a technique we now know is basically junk science. It's just so unreliable, it's since been completely discredited. 18 years. Let that sink in for a second. This wasn't just a simple mistake. It was a devastating injustice. 18 years. These men lost their 20s, their 30s, their families, their entire futures. And all the while, the real killer was just free. And this quote from John Restivo, wow, it just captures the daily reality of their nightmare. "I woke up on the wrong side of the wall this morning." Imagine saying that every single day. And while the real killer was out there, living his life, these men were literally fighting for theirs from behind bars. But here's where the story takes this incredible, ironic twist. The very same science that would eventually find the killer, well, first, it had to free the innocent. The key was a single piece of evidence that, somehow, held 2 completely different truths. So this is just the incredible dual role DNA played in this case. In 2003, it acted like a shield. It proved their innocence and finally set these men free. But the killer's DNA profile? It was like an island. No matches in any database, no connections. The case went cold, again, for 2 more decades, until technology could finally build a bridge to that island. And this is the technology that built that bridge: forensic genetic genealogy. It's a real game changer. It allowed investigators to do what was totally impossible back in 2003. They could take that unknown DNA profile, upload it to public genealogy databases, and basically start building a family tree for a ghost. So, okay, how do you actually catch a 40-year-old ghost? Well, the final breakthrough really gets going in 2023. Investigators send that now 39-year-old piece of evidence to a specialized lab. This place, Othram, they could do something amazing: extract a modern, really comprehensive DNA profile from that tiny, degraded sample. From there, the FBI's genealogy team started this painstaking process. It's like building a massive, incredibly complex puzzle. They found distant relatives, built family trees going backward in time, and then traced them forward to the present. And after all that meticulous work, one single name emerged: Richard Bellotto. And guess what? Back in 1984, he was 23 years old and lived just a mile from the crime scene. But hold on, a family tree, that's just a lead, right? It's not hard evidence. To make an arrest that would actually stand up in court, they needed a direct DNA match from Bellotto himself. The big challenge was, how do you get it legally?
And this is exactly how they did it, with just incredible precision. Every single step was by the book. They put Bilodeau under surveillance, and then they just waited, patiently. They watched him discard a straw, and then they legally collected it as abandoned property. It was that simple. 40 years after the crime, science finally delivered that direct, undeniable link. The ghost had a face.
You know, after 4 decades of junk science, coerced confessions, and wrongful convictions, the science was finally clean. It was clear, and it was absolutely undeniable.
So when you look at the whole picture, the Theresa Fusco case is really so much more than just a crime story. It's a powerful lesson, a lesson in patience and persistence, and in the profound power of science to correct the past.
This is exactly why we can never, ever give up on cold cases. Think about it. That swab from 1984 was like a little time bomb of truth, just sitting there, waiting for the right technology to come along and light the fuse. It really honors the quiet, relentless dedication of everyone who keeps fighting for answers.
And just think about this quote for a second. After everything the system put his family through, the wrongful convictions that gave them false closure, the decades and decades of silence, he never lost faith. His persistence, that's the real human heart of this whole story.
And so that's really the question this case leaves us with, isn't it? It's a story of profound tragedy and systemic failure, for sure. But in the end, it's also a story of scientific redemption, and it offers this glimmer of hope to countless other families who are still out there, just waiting in the dark for their own answers.